Have you ever brewed a cup of coffee in a Hario V60 that turned out not quite right? Sarah, your coffee's ready. Not good. Why can't I do this? Well, after I posted my Chemex brew guide, I heard from you right away that something very similar for the Hario V60 would be helpful as well. So here we are. I'm going to give you a recipe for the Hario V60 that is easy to follow, straight good coffee, not a lot of steps, easy to remember, no fuss, no tips, no fancy tricks, just good coffee. One thing I will say before we get started is make sure you watch to the end, because I'm going to give you some pointers that will help you optimize this either way, depending on several factors like what coffee you're drinking, if your brew doesn't work out the way you hope, all that. So make sure you watch to the end, and if there is something specific that you want to see, make sure you let me know in the comments too, because I always love answering those. And while you're at it, subscribe, because I love bringing you all the great coffee goods, and I would love to see you again. Okay, so for this recipe, I'm going to do 16 grams of coffee and 250 mils of water. If that's too small of a cup for you after we're all finished here, you can do basically the same thing with 20 grams of ground coffee and 320 mils of water. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pre-wet, pre-warm our filter. I've got my kettle heated here. I've got it heated to 208 degrees Fahrenheit. But basically you just want to preheat your filter, wash any paper residue off that was left over from when it was made and all that, and then dump out this water. Once you're done, dump in your coffee. You can put a little divot in there. That just helps the water get right down to the bottom when you're pouring. I just use my finger most of the time, honestly, but if you got company over, you might want to use a spoon or something. So I'm just going to make a little divot. I'm going to try and not compress the beans too much. So I'm going to start my timer, and I'm going to do one pour fairly quickly, 50 grams of water. This is called a bloom. I'll probably do another video about that one day. But I'm going to pour in 50 grams, try and get all the beans wet. And then I'm going to give it a nice aggressive swirl to make sure they're all wet. And then I'm just going to let it sit until about the 30-second mark. All right, step 2. You're going to do a slow, steady pour all the way up to 250 mils total water weight, and you're going to aim to end your pour, finish up around the 1 minute and 30-second mark. I'm just going to keep going until I've got all the water in. So I want to have 250 mils total. That's including the 50 mil bloom. So this pour by itself is about 200 mils. All right, 250 mils. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Now you just wait and you get good coffee. That's really as simple as this recipe is. If you care about having a flat coffee bed when you're all done, you can give this little swirl. Honestly, most of the time I just leave it because it doesn't really make the biggest impact on flavor anyway. So what you really want to look for is you want that coffee to finish draining. You want to see all that water disappearing around the 3 to 3.5 minute mark. If you're in that neighborhood, what you're going to end up with is likely going to be pretty good. And it's as simple as that. 2 steps, no fancy business, and you're left with really good coffee. So let's take a sip. Oh, perfect. Just the way I like it. So the first thing I always tell people is that you got to go by taste. If the coffee tastes good, it probably is good, and you don't really need to sweat the details of this. Now, if the brew goes really fast, the coffee might come out a little acidic, and if that's the case, just grind a little bit finer until you're in that time range. Now, if the brew takes too long and it comes out very bitter, then what you want to do is you want to coarsen the grind until that whole process ends up around the 3 to 3.5 minute mark. Now, if you want to up the dose, go for a larger cup than this. You can try a 20 gram with 320 grams of water. And it should time out somewhere around the same, but again, use your taste. If it's not tasting right, then make your adjustments. And that's it. That is the simplest, straightest way to enjoy a cup of V60 coffee. I wish I had more to add, but it really is that simple. And the only thing I have left to say is for you to subscribe so that we can see each other again. Cheers. Enjoy that coffee.